The Third Testament, Section 9. Teachings of the Divine Wisdom. Chapter 40, The Forces of Good and Evil. The Origin of Good and Evil. 1. When the Father created you, He placed you on the first step of the celestial ladder so that you might have the opportunity to truly know and understand your Creator as you travel this path. But how few began the ascending path of development upon leaving the first rung. Most of them joined together in their disobedience and unruliness, made bad use of the gift of freedom and did not listen to the voice of conscience. They allowed themselves to be dominated by matter and thus, through their radiations, created a power, that of evil, and dug an abyss into which their influence had to tear their brothers and sisters, who began a bloody struggle between their weaknesses and depravities and their desire for exaltation and purity. 35-38. 2. Original sin does not come from the union of man and woman. I, the Creator, ordered this union when I said to both of them, grow and multiply. This was the first law. The sin lay in the abuse people made of the gift of free will. 99-62. 3. The flesh, soul, fears the battle with the spirit and seeks a way to tempt it through the pleasures of the world to prevent or at least delay its liberation. See how man has his own tempter within him. This is why I have said that if he defeats himself, he has won the battle. 97-37. For in this time, when even the air, the earth, and the water are poisoned by the iniquities of men, how few are those who are not infected by evil or by darkness. 144-44. 5. The lamentation of mankind reaches me, the fear of children, of young people, of men and women of mature age and of the old rises. It is the call that calls for justice, it is an imploring plea for peace, for mercy that comes from the Spirit. For the seed of love in this world is corrupted, and do you know where love is now? In the innermost part of the human heart, so deep inside that man cannot discover it, because hatred, the desire for power, science and vanity have crushed the seed, and there is neither spirituality nor mercy. The cup of suffering becomes ever fuller, and the world drinks it down to the yeasts. 218-12. 6. From altar to altar, from rite to rite, and from sect to sect, men go from one altar to another, desiring the bread of life without finding it, and out of disappointment they become blasphemers, making ways without purpose, living without God and without law. 7. But consider, people, that among them are the great spirit beings, that among them I discover the prophets and disciples of the Holy Spirit. 217-49. 8. In the denominations men acknowledge the power of evil and have personified it in a human form. They acknowledge it as a mighty kingdom and have given it various names. People are afraid when they believe it closely, without understanding that the temptation is rooted in passions, in weaknesses, that both good and evil are stirred up within man. 9. Evil prevails in this time in the world, and has created a power, a force, which is manifest in everything. And in the spiritual there are legions of imperfect, confused, evil and vengeful spirit beings, whose power unites with human wickedness to form the kingdom of evil. 10. That power resisted Jesus in the second age and showed him their kingdom. My flesh sensitive to everything was tempted, but my spiritual strength conquered temptation, for I had to be the conqueror of the world, of flesh, of temptation and death, because I was the Master who came down to men to set an example of strength. 182, 42-43. 11. By the peace you feel in your spirit you can know my presence. No one but I can give you true peace. A spirit being from the darkness could not give it to you. I tell you this because many hearts fear the pitfalls of a seductive being to whom men have given life and form according to their imagination. 12. How wrong has the existence of the Prince of Darkness been interpreted? How many, after all, have believed more in his power than in mine, and how far from the truth have men been involved? 13. Evil exists, from which all vices and sins have come forth, that is, those who do evil have always existed, both on earth and in other homes or worlds. But why do you personify all existing evil in a single being, and why do you confront it with the Godhead? I ask you, what is an impure being before my absolute and infinite power, and what does your sin mean in the face of my perfection? 14. Sin was not born in the world. When the spirits came forth out of God, some remained in the good, while others who strayed from this path created another, that of evil. 15. The words and the parables which were given to you in former times in symbols as a revelation have been interpreted by mankind in error. The intuitive knowledge that men had of the supernatural was influenced by their imagination, and so, little by little, around the power of evil, they formed sciences, cults, superstitions, and myths that have persisted to your days. 16. From God no devils can come forth, these you have devised with your minds. The conception you have of that being, which you constantly oppose me as opponent, is wrong. 17. I have taught you to watch and pray so that you may free yourselves from temptations and bad influences, which can come from both human beings and spirit beings. 18. I have told you that you should place the spirit above the flesh, soul, because this is a weak creature that is in constant danger of falling down if you do not watch over it. The heart, the mind and the senses are open doors through which the passions of the world chastise the spirit. 19. If you have imagined that the beings of darkness are like monsters, I see them only as imperfect creatures, whom I stretch out my hand to save them, for they too are my children. 114, 54-62. 20. Whenever you do something good, you say, I am noble, I am generous, I am charitable, therefore I do this. I tell you, if you would do those works in the name of your Lord, you would be humble, because goodness comes from God and I have given it to your spirit. 21. Therefore, whoever ascribes his good works to his human heart denies his spirit and him who endowed them with these virtues. 22. On the other hand, if you do evil, you wash your hands like Pilate, and that act you blame on the Father, saying, it was the will of God, it was written, God wanted it, it is destiny. 23. You say that nothing is done without the will of God to absolve you of your faults. But verily, I say to you, you are wrong, because your faults, your wretchedness, happen without the will of God. 24. Know that the Almighty never compels you by force, by His power. You do this with your weaker brothers and sisters. 25. Truly I say to you, evil, unfairness, lack of harmony are your own. Love, patience, peace of mind come from God. 26. Whenever you love, it is the Creator of your spirit who inspires you. If, on the other hand, you hate, it is your weakness that drives you and destroys you. Whenever something evil happens in your life, you can be sure that it is your work. 27 But then you wonder, why does God allow this to happen? Does He not suffer through our sins? Does He not also weep when He sees us weeping? What would it cost Him to save us from these falls? 28 I say to you, as long as you do not love, God will be something for you that you cannot comprehend, because the magnanimity of your Creator is beyond your understanding. 29 Become strong, great, wise, learn to love. If you love, you will no longer have a childish desire to fathom God, for then you will see Him and feel Him, and this will be enough for you. 248, 29-32. Arrogance and Humility. 30 Make of humility one of your best allies to achieve spiritual ascent. For the gates of the kingdom of heaven, which is the kingdom of the Spirit, are completely closed to the proud. He has never passed through them, nor will he ever succeed in doing so. But when he becomes humble, I will be the first to praise him, and it will be my mercy that opens the door to eternity for him. 89, 45. 31 Now follows another of my teachings, disciples, verily I tell you, when you feel strong, great or superior, you move away from me because your pride strangles the feeling of humility. But when you feel small, when you realize that you are like atoms in the midst of my creation, then you approach me, because of your humility you admire me, you love me and feel me close to you. Then you think of all the great and inscrutable things that God holds in Him and that you would like to know and experience. It seems to you as if you would hear the echo of divine whispering in your spirit. 248, 22. 32 Disciples, if man has a true knowledge of the works he has done, he will not be blinded by vanity. He knows that, if this base feeling were to penetrate his being, his intelligence would become clouded and he would be unable to progress on the path of development, he would stop and sink into lethargy. 33 Vanity has ruined many people, destroyed many thriving peoples, and brought down your cultures. 34 As long as the peoples had drive, efficiency, and progress as ideals, they experienced abundance, splendor, and prosperity. But when arrogance made them feel superior, when their ideal of upward development was replaced by the insatiable ambition to have everything for themselves, they began, step by step, without them realizing it and without wanting it, to destroy everything they had built up, and finally threw themselves into the abyss. 35 The history of mankind is full of such experiences. Therefore I say to you that it is right for a people with great ideals to arise in the world, which, although always aware of its good works, does not imagine anything about them. In this way its course will not be halted, and the splendor achieved hitherto will be surpassed tomorrow and increased again later. 36 When I speak to you in this way, I try to inspire you not only material goals, I want my words to be correctly interpreted so that you may know how to apply them to the spiritual as well as to the material. 37 Vanity cannot afflict man only in his material life, and as proof of what I am telling you, consider the falls and failures of the great denominations, which are gnawed in their foundations by vanity, pride, their false splendor. Whenever they believed to be at the height of their power, someone came and shook them out of their dreams, showed them their errors, their aberrations, their deviations from the law and from the truth. 38 Only through the real knowledge and fulfillment of my law in the face of conscience will this mankind be able to rise to a high life, for conscience, which is my light, is perfect, is unclouded, is righteous, never becomes vain or goes crooked ways. 295, 1824. The good, the person of goodwill. 39. Get to know me all, so that no one denies me, recognize me, so that your conception of God is based on truth and you know that where the good shows itself, I am. 40. The good mixes with nothing. The good is truth, is love, is mercy, is understanding. The good is clearly recognizable and unmistakable. Recognize it, so that you do not err. 41. Every man may go a different way, but when they all come together at a point which is good, they will finally recognize and unite. 42. Not so, if they persistently deceive themselves by giving the appearance of evil to good and masking evil as good, as is the case with the people of this age. 329, 45-47. 43. For almost 2,000 years you have been repeating that sentence which the shepherds of Bethlehem heard, peace on earth to men of goodwill. But when did you put goodwill into practice in order to acquire a right to peace? Verily I say to you, you have rather done the opposite. 44. You have lost the right to repeat this sentence. This is why I come today with new words and teachings, so that it may not be sentences and phrases that imprint themselves on your mind, but the meaning of my teaching, which is to penetrate your heart and your spirit. 45. If you want to repeat my words as I give them to you, do so, but know that as long as you do not feel them, they will have no effect. Speak them with intimacy and humility, feel them resonate in your heart, then I will answer you in such a way that I will make your whole being tremble. 24, 33-34. 46. I tell you again, peace to men of goodwill who love the truth, because they do something to bow to the divine will. And those who place themselves under my protection must inevitably feel my presence, both in their spirit and in their human lives, in their struggles, in their needs, in their trials. 47. Men of goodwill are children who obey the law of their Father. They walk on the right path, and when they suffer greatly, they lift up their spirit to me in their desire for forgiveness and peace. 48. They know that pain is often necessary, and therefore they bear it with patience. Only when it becomes unbearable do they ask that the burden of their cross be lightened for them. Lord, they say to me, I know that my spirit needs purification, suffering, to develop upward. You know better than I what my need is. You cannot give me anything that I do not need. Thy will be done on me, therefore. 49. Blessed are those who think and pray in this way, for they seek the example of their Master to apply it to the trials of their lives. 258, 52-53. Evil, the man who is addicted to evil. 50. In this time the influence of evil is greater than that of good. Therefore, the power that prevails in mankind is that of evil, from which selfishness, lies, fornication, pride, maliciousness, destruction, and all lower passions arise. It is from this disturbed moral balance that the illnesses that plague man arise. 51. Men have no weapons to fight against these forces. They have been defeated and brought as prisoners into the abyss of a life without spiritual light, without healthy joy, without striving for good. 52. Just now, when man believes he is at the summit of knowledge, he does not know that he is in the abyss. 53. I, who know your beginning and your future in eternity, gave men from the first times weapons with which they could fight against the forces of evil. But they despised them and preferred the fight of evil against evil, in which no one wins, because all will emerge defeated. 54 It is written that evil will not prevail, which means that in the end of times it will be good that triumphs. 55 If you ask me what were the weapons with which I equipped men to fight against the forces or influences of evil, I tell you that it was prayer, perseverance in the law, faith in my word and love for one another. 40, 65-70. 56 Evil has increased among men, my people. Goodness, virtue and love have been weak against the invasion of evil, diseases, plagues, epidemics and misfortunes. All that is the seed of the corrupt has infected the heart of the good, has made some stumble, has decimated the number of the faithful, because evil has exercised great power over mankind. 57 I have allowed such things to happen for the sake of the freedom of will granted to you. For behind all the corruption, all the darkness and the blindness of men, there is a divine light, the conscience, which does not pass away and never will. There is an original being, which is the Spirit, who keeps immaculately the kiss which the Father gave him, and which is the divine seal with which I sent all my children on the way of battle. Through this characteristic none of these spirit beings will be lost. 345, 11-12. The struggle between good and evil. 58 You were also astonished at the violence which men and women have revealed in their wickedness throughout all the ages of your human existence. The book of your historiography has collected their names. In the book of remembrance of your existence, in the book in which God writes down and records all your deeds, all your works, their names are also included, and you have wondered that one spirit, one human heart, can hold up so much power for evil, so much courage, that he cannot shudder at his own works, that he can silence the voice of his conscience, that he cannot hear the accountability of God, which he demands through the same of all his children. And how often has the life journey of those spirit beings on this planet been long and lasting? 59 These people, who have resisted my love and my justice because of the freedom of will, I have used precisely their disobedience to make them my servants. In the opinion of acting freely, all their thoughts, words and deeds were an instrument of my justice, both in relation to themselves and to others. 60 But when will that rule end? The Father tells you, the dominion of evil has never dominated mankind. For even in times of greatest depravity there were faithful men who were obedient to my teaching and apostles of my law. But the struggle has always existed from the beginning. 61 Which of these two forces has been superior in struggle so far? That of evil. This is why I had to make myself physically audible among you to stand by you, to revive your hope and faith in me, to give warmth to your hearts and tell you, you are not alone on the way, I have never lied to you, you must never change the principles that I have put in you. This is the way of good and love. 345, 48-49. 62 See how my light is breaking through the mists of your world. I fight against men, but only to eradicate all evil that lives in their hearts. I will put the light and the power of my love in those who faithfully follow me, and they will then say, let us seek the dragon who lies in wait for us, the beast that leads us to sin and offend the Lord. They will seek it on the seas, in the desert, on the mountains and in the forests, in the invisible, and will not find it because it lives in the heart of man. Only this has begotten it, and there it has grown until it has ruled the earth. 63 If the blinking of my lysaber injures the heart of every man, the violence that comes from evil will become weaker and weaker until it passes away. Then you will say, Lord, with the divine power of your mercy I have defeated the dragon, of whom I believed that he lurked from the invisible, without remembering that I carried him in my own heart. 64 If once wisdom shines in all men, who will dare to falsify good into evil? Who then will still give up what is eternal for what is transitory? Verily I say to you, no one, for you will all be strong in divine wisdom. Sin is only the consequence of ignorance and weakness. 160, 51-54. Temptations and seductions. 65 Humanity cultivates many kinds of trees. The hunger and misery of men makes them seek shade and fruit from them, offering them salvation, justice, or peace. These trees are teachings from people who are often inspired by hatred, selfishness, the striving for power and megalomania. Their fruits are death, blood, destruction and desecration of the holiest in the life of man, which is the freedom of faith, thinking, speaking, in a word, the robbery of his freedom of mind. It is the dark powers that rise up to fight against the light. 113, 52-53. 66 I have told you, beloved Israel, that the time will come when bad mouthpieces will rise to give access to a false Jesus, and in their material striving they will deceive and say that through them the Master speaks. False leaders and false prophets, false soldiers will arise, who will try to lead you astray from the path of light and truth with their word and material striving. 346, 38. 67 Pray, recognize that now is the time when my righteousness and my light has stirred up all dark powers. This is a difficult and perilous time, for even the beings who dwell in darkness will pose among you as beings of light to seduce you, to confuse you. I give you my light so that you do not stray from the path, nor allow yourselves to be deceived by those who abuse my name. 68 The deceivers are not only invisible beings, you find them also incarnated in men who speak to you of teachings which pretend to be light, but which are contrary to my teachings. These you shall not listen to. 132, 7-8. 69 My kingdom is strong and powerful, and if I have allowed another power to rise before my power and my might, that of evil so that you may prove mine, so that in the face of deceit, of darkness, you may experience and see the power of my light and my truth. It is so that you may recognize that kingdom of dark shadows of aberrations and temptations, although it has great power, is my tool, and I actually use it. 70 When I test you, this does not happen to stop you on your path of development, because I await your arrival in my kingdom. But I want you to come to me victoriously after the battles, to be strong after the battle, full of light of spiritual experience after the long pilgrimage, full of merits in the Spirit, so that you may humbly lift your face and see the Father the moment He approaches to give you His divine kiss, a kiss that contains all happiness and perfections for your spirit. 327, 8-9. Moral crimes. 71 Men, all of you who come up against each other. I have found you denying your wickedness and boasting of what you think is greatness, while you hide your shame. But I tell you that the man who thinks he is praiseworthy in his apparent greatness is a spiritual poor man. And to those who, for lack of virtues, blaspheme at the faults of others and judge foreign transgressions, I must say that they are hypocrites and are very far from justice and truth. 72 Not only those who take the life of the body, but also those who tear the heart apart through slander. Those who kill the feelings of the heart, the faith, the ideal, are murderers of the spirit. And how many of them live free, without prison and without chains? 73 Do not be surprised that I speak to you in this way, because I see among you destroyed homes, because you, disregarding your duties, have entered into new obligations outside of them, not caring about the pain and abandonment of your relatives. Look around you, how many homes are destroyed, how many women in vice, and how many children without a father. How could tenderness and love exist in those hearts? Do you not think that the one who killed the happiness of those people and destroyed what was sacred is a criminal? 74 You have become so accustomed to evil that you yourselves call great the people who invent these new weapons of death, because in a moment they can destroy millions of lives. And you even call them scholars. Where is your reason then? Greatness can only be through the Spirit, and teaching can only be done by him who walks in the way of truth. 235,36, 39. Powerlessness and transitoriness of evil. 75 Great, very great in your eyes is human depravity. The power and the force of evil that men exercise seems to you to be terrible, and yet I tell you that it is weak against the power of my justice, against my divinity which is Lord of destiny, of life, of death and of all creation. 54, 70. 76 Only a being that would be almighty like me could fight with me. But do you believe that if a deity came forth from me, it would be against me? Or do you believe that it can arise from nothing? Nothing can come out of nothing. 77 I am everything and have never been born. I am the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega of all created. 78 Can you imagine that one of the beings created by me could rise up to God? All creatures have limits, and to be God, it is necessary to have no limits. He who has cherished those dreams of power and greatness has fallen into the darkness of his own pride. 73, 34-35. 79 Verily I say to you, there is no power that you can oppose my love. The enemies prove to be poor, the opposing forces are weak, the weapons that tried to fight against truth and justice have always been fragile. 80 The struggle that the forces of evil have waged against divine justice has appeared to you as an endless conflict. And yet, in the face of eternity it will be like a moment, and the transgressions committed during the time of your spirit's imperfection will be like a little stain which your virtue and my loving justice will wipe out forever. 179, 12-13. The power of forgiveness. 81 All you men, I ask you and consider this people here as your representatives, when will you rise inwardly, love one another, and forgive one another your insults? When will there finally be peace on your planet? 82 Forgiveness, which springs from love, is taught only by my teaching, and it has a powerful power to transform evil into good, to convert and transform the sinner into a virtuous man. 83 Learn to forgive, and you will have the beginning of peace in your world. If it were necessary to forgive 1,000 times, you shall do it 1,000 times. Are you not aware that reconciliation at the right time saves you from drinking a cup of suffering? 238, 12-14. 84. As long as you are men, remember me at that cross, how I forgave my executioners, blessed them and healed them, so that during your whole difficult way of life you likewise bless those who do wrong to you, and you do all possible good to those who have done evil to you. He who acts in this way is my disciple, and indeed, I tell him that his pain will always be short, because I will make him feel my strength in the moments of his trial. 263, 56. 85. Forgive one another, and you will find relief for yourselves and for him who has done wrong to you. Bear not the burden of hatred or resentment in your spirit, be pure in heart, and you have discovered the mystery of peace and will live as apostles of my truth. 243,63.